So we got a bunch of 7 to 9-year-olds in a room. And I always remember one of my favorite encounters was with a bunch of 6-year-olds who were all Japanese. And as I'm showing these stories, the parents were getting very tight-lipped, shaking their head, because they had been trying to keep them from the kids. All I can say is, the story panel was called Folk Monsters from Japan. You're Japanese, what did you expect me to talk about? Also, this was brought up in my last panel. We're at an anime con. And as such, the temptation to go up to someone and say, "You are so kawaii," is very strong. Because there's a lot of cute people here. Here's the problem. The word is not pronounced kawaii. The word you are looking for is kawaii. Kawaii. That means cute. Kawaii means scary. So if you're referring to Honey Senpai, he is totes kawaii. If you are referring to Demon Totoro eating your family, that's kawaii. And I would say who would come up with that, but there exists an urban legend that My Neighbor Totoro is about 2 dead children. And if you want to hear it, find me later. Regular Totoro, kawaii. Kawaii. Pronounce at your own risk. I only say that because a lot of Japanese monsters, and I beat this into people's heads yesterday, I beat it into people's heads 2 hours ago. A lot of Japanese monsters exist because you did something wrong. You cut your toenails at night and now there's a demon scissors running around your house. You got drunk and yelled at a shrine and now a faceless spirit is chasing you around town. You said the emperor sucked, now the sun goddess is shooting arrows at you. That's the thing. If you do something wrong, a lot of yokai are morality monsters. One of the monsters I'm going to introduce you today is literally the definition of a gold digger. And she's being punished for it. So I'm just letting you know. Now, here's the thing. There are a lot of quirky, kooky superstitions when it comes to going to Japan. And when you're there, you'll encounter quite a few of them. For example, face masks. People kind of look at you funny, especially if you are a woman wearing a face mask and it's not flu season. Why? There's a monster for that. She walks around Tokyo wearing a face mask and saying, "Am I pretty?" But it's important because she says, "Watashi kirei." That's the important part. For example, 64% of Tokyo cab drivers have claimed that a ghost has gotten into their car. They have driven the ghost somewhere, been paid in ghost money, the ghost disappears out of the back of the car, and the car got attacked by something. I really want to know what they were drinking. I want some of it. More people keep track of their lucky and unlucky days than Americans follow horoscopes. And if your unlucky number says do not go outside, you can call up your boss. He'll let you stay home. Fatal Frame is based on a true story. An actual mansion somewhere in Kyoto, or is it Tokyo, or is it Nara, or is it Osaka, that a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend has been to and swears is real. If you believe that, I have a bridge in New York I'd like to sell you, and it's not the one you're thinking of. And finally, 42. If you're a Douglas Adams fan, 42 is the secret to the universe. If you are Japanese, well, how do you say 42 in Japanese? Shini, which means to die. So there's no 42nd room in a hospital. There's no 42nd floor on a building. And when you turn 42, now I'm not 42, not for another, 8 years. But you see I got an Inari card in my wallet. That Inari card is for faith in business and faith in friendship. And it was given to me by an associate who likes when I'm making money, because then I'm not depressed all the time. You will get a card like that when you turn 42. You carry it in your wallet the entire year. And the day you turn 43, you take it to the shrine and they burn it. Why? So the spirits don't get you. And I'm telling this story, again, to a room full of children. And this young boy, when I said Shini, looks up at me and says, "Yonjuni." the alternate translation. And his mother was. Why? You just don't tempt fate like that. Some of you saw this in the last slide. Why do you never leave a cat in a room with a dead body? Because the cat will breathe life back into it, and now it controls a zombie. Most cats I know, including mine, hate their owners. So now it's the cat's house. Find someplace else to live. Never pass food between chopsticks. Never put chopsticks upright in a bowl of rice. It makes them dirty. Passing food, ew, spit. Putting them upright in a bowl of rice, when someone dies, you get a bowl, you put incense in it, light the incense, you're telling the ghost to eat it. So I have a great question. Do you want to French kiss a ghost? Do you? Do you? Do you want to French kiss a ghost? Congratulations! Oh no, then they're normal, you're not. If you don't make it dirty, nothing will lick it. Never place a bed head facing north. That is the direction souls go when they die. So if your bed is head facing north, you will die eventually.
Everyone will die.
Exactly. And then my favorite one, I love telling this, because if you were in the last panel, you heard it. Moshi moshi. What? It means what? Hello on the telephone. Very specific reason for that. A lot of yokai and yurei take human form. Do you see the person on the other end of the line? How do you know it's not a ghost trying to lure you out of the house? You don't. So you say, moshi moshi. And if they respond moshi moshi in turn, you know that they're human. So I am hanging out in northern Japan in the village of Tono. Tono is the home of Japanese folklore. It's written on their train station. And I am walking past a mountain after dark. There is a guy coming towards me. He's wearing a hapi, a ritual jacket. He has a taiko drum on his back. And he cries out to me, "Oi, moshi moshi!" And I think to myself, do I want to be that gaijin? Moshi! He turned around and ran in the opposite direction. Because you don't know. And if you don't know, it can hurt you. Yokai are essentially the John Cena of Japanese things. You can't see it, but it will still put you in the hospital. So here's the thing about yokai. There's a lot that goes into them. Yokai is a connotative word. It makes you feel something. If I were to say demon, you automatically think of something and you feel it in your chest. Yokai is a lot like that. The word doesn't have a definition. It simply reminds you that you don't know what it is, it could be dangerous, and it could hurt you. So, if you heard this one, do you know what that is? That's a porcupine. They don't have porcupines in Japan. So imagine you go, you're Japanese, and you see this little thing in a cage that has blades growing out of its back. That is terrifying to you. We would say it's a porcupine. The Japanese trader thinks it's a demon. Ergo, you get the idea of a yokai. If you don't know what it is, it can be very dangerous. And yokai come in 4 very specific flavors. Animals with powers. Things that live in the natural world that do weird things to you. Like the tanuki. The tanuki are little dogs that look like raccoons that fight you using the power of their testicles. Tengu. Bird monsters that fly down from the heavens to steal the food out of your hand and take it back up to the heavens. That happened to me. It's terrifying. You hear a screech and a crow this big dive bombs you because you walked outside with some yakitori. But these are animals with powers. You have supernatural creatures like the kappa, those small little things that smell like a fart and subsist on cucumbers and the flesh of young children. Or sushi. You know why they call it kappamaki? Because kappas like cucumbers. Inanimate objects come to life. You threw out your parasol, you walk out the front door, there's your parasol sticking its tongue out at you. What did you drink last night? And finally you have angry women. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and yokai are no different. There are so many angry female monsters that it's hard to keep track of them all. But there's reasons for this. Number 1, Japan is still a male-dominated, highly regimented society. If a woman gets pregnant, she is expected to quit her job to raise the children. And if she doesn't, she will be fired. If a woman gets married and does not take her husband's name, she can be punished for it. If a woman gets to a certain level and the boss doesn't like them for whatever reason, they have no recourse to appeal. There's still a lot of segmentation there. There are a lot of yokai that represent deviance, using your beauty for negative means, using your beauty for lies. There are yokai for that. At one point, women were so mistrusted that their roles were played by effeminate bishis named onagata, who got off on pretending to be women, but they still had a penis, so it was okay. This has been a thing, and when you look at yokai, you see a lot of it. Who here knows what this is? Who has seen a Hanya before?
It's my wife before coffee.
That's me before coffee. Hanya are not actual monsters, but they represent something. They represent an old woman who never got married, who never had children, because she's missing the love of family. And honestly, you don't need to get married if you don't want to. It's your damn life. But since she is missing the love of family, she creeps into houses and tries to take other people's children. She tries to curse people. When you look at Kabuki and No Theater, she is a villain. Why is she a villain? Because she never got to be a real woman. And I'm doing that intentionally. These legends are consistently reinforced. And if you want to see some of the origins, you can look no further than the mother. Way back in the day, if you read the Kojiki, if you read the Nihon Shoki, you may have heard of Izanami. First and foremost, those two books are not folklore books. They're imperial propaganda. Just getting that out there. But here's the thing. There's a kami with a lot of words in his name. It's like Ami no Nushi no Mikoto no something. And it pretty much means, I am the greatest thing that ever existed. If you don't like it, go to hell. And he created a world and plunked down in it Izanagi, the first man, and Izanami, the first woman. And he said one thing to them. Go forth and populate the world with your children. And when God tells you to have sex, that is now your full-time job. And they went all over the island. They had sex to make the islands of Japan. They had sex to populate them. They did whatever they could to create as many kami as possible. And then one day, Izanami gives birth to Kagutsuchi, the fire god. She pukes, creates 6 more kami, falls to the ground, and dies. You would die too if you shot flames from that part of your body. But here's the thing. She's a kami. She can't just disappear. So she goes to a world called the Yomi. The Yomi is not life. It is the opposite of the world we live in. It's dark. It's dank. It smells bad. I actually say it's like being forced to go to New Jersey, but never being able to leave. So she goes into this world, and she's separated from her husband. She's separated from her children. She's separated from nature, from the sun, from beauty. She's separated from all of this. And she starts getting angry. I want revenge. How dare they go on living while I'm stuck in Jersey? So one day, her husband reappears inside the Yomi. And he sees her behind a veil of shadows. And he says, dearest one, I love you. I miss you. I need you back. Follow me out. I'll bring you back into the world, and we can be a family again. And all she's thinking is, this guy is an idiot. But you know what? I'm going to run with this. Okay, I'll follow you out. Until I'm outside, don't turn around. So what do you think he does? He turns around. And some of you may have heard a different version. There's like 3. So I wanted to tell both of them this weekend. He turns around, and he sees her eyes are gone, her nose is gone, her lips are gone. You can play the xylophone on her ribs. Her hair is falling out in clumps. And all he looks and says is, damn, girl, you let yourself go. So she gets enraged. He drop kicks her into the underworld. He shoves a stone in front of it, locks it into place with prayers. You actually can visit that stone. Yomotsu Hirasaka, outside modern-day Matsue. Oh, and if you're going to Sakai Minato, you got to go to Matsue, so go to Yomotsu Hirasaka. Put your hand on the stone. They will threaten to shoot you. They get divorced.
What if I wear the mask?
No, do not wear that mask. They will think you are the biggest baka gaijin in the world. But I digress. I'll tell you baka gaijin stories later. They get divorced. She says, every day I will kill 1,000 of your children because of this. And he says that I'll make 1,500 more. Sia goes and does calisthenics in the Sea of Japan and gives birth to Amaterasu, Sosunowo, and Tsukiyomi. Meanwhile, she is stuck in the underworld getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And one day, her rage allows her to create a massive storm that shakes the foundations of the Yomi. And it opens up a tiny little crack in the wall. And she shoves a little piece of her spirit into it. Ends up in a foggy mountain town in northern Japan where she gets a job as a gas station attendant, touching people and throwing them inside the television to solve Scooby-Doo style mysteries. And you have the plot to Persona 4. Who is the villain in Persona 4? Izanami. So, Izanami's thing is deception. She lies to you. She misleads you. She wants you to strangle yourself. She keeps telling you these things that are blatantly untrue simply because she wants to control and destroy the world. Let me give you an example of it. Many years ago, I was watching a phenomenal anime, and I spent a chunk of this series wondering why the main character's mother was such a bitch. And I'm like, rainbows and like angel wings? Oh, I get it. They're making fun of Christianity. And then I'm going home from Anime Boston, and my friend had handed me the 23rd episode of said show. And he says, watch this, you're going to think it's really funny. I'm sitting on the bus, and I get to a certain moment in the show. And I immediately start laughing the moment I realized that Kiryu and Ragyo was Izanami. Lying to us, and getting us to surrender our freedom to her. That's her M.O. Japan has a declining birth rate. They are terrified about losing their people. Why? Because Izanami threatened to do it. So every time someone is led astray, the goal is to pull them back. Now, Kijo are not quite as earth-shaking. They're female Oni. Male Oni are big, strong, fangs, claws, horns, likes to beat things up because you're a dirty little boy who deserves it. But that's what male Oni do. Female Oni are often wild. They live in the wilds. They have a strong personal passion, a strong personal fire. Female Oni are the ones you worry about because the male Oni are very one-track mind. You hit it hard enough, it goes away. Female Oni, well, when you die, you appear at the mouth of this river called the Sanzu. And as you walk hesitantly towards the river of the damned, you see her. This is Datsueba, and she is hanging out on the banks of the river at the base of a giant willow tree. And you approach with great trepidation. You're just wearing the flashiest clothes, I'm sorry. And she walks up to you and says, hey, take off your clothes. No, seriously, strip. If you keep saying no, she holds you down and tears them off your body. If you say yes, you give it to her, she throws them up into the tree. Because here's the thing. Clothing in the underworld is a representation of your regret, your sin, your fear. You use it to hide your shame. If you are in the underworld stark naked, it means you lived a life with no regrets, a pure life, and you get a donkey and a bridge. Everyone else, she hangs it from the tree. And if it breaks the branch, congratulations, you got to get across the river by yourself. So certain people who are incredibly wicked see the naked guys walk right up to her. She bows to them, gives them a donkey, and they're like, you know what? If I take off my clothes and put them over here, she'll give me a donkey. Hey, Datsueba, look, I got no sin. She rips your skin off. Oh. Hangs your skin from the tree. And if you were so wicked that you knew the clothes were going to break it, congratulations. Now you need to swim to the other side of a river made of salty human tears with no skin. Your punishment doesn't start till you get to the other side. This one was from the last panel. This is Onibaba. Onibaba was a good servant to the queen, the princess of Japan. And the princess had a daughter. The thing is, the daughter wouldn't talk. So the princess went to the local shrine priestess and said, what can I do? And the priestess says, here's what you do. You get the liver of an unborn child, mash it up into a paste, give her a mustache, she'll be fine. Okay. Okay. Walks over to her chief servant, says, here's what you do. You bring me the liver of an unborn child, and everything's cool. Tell them the princess demands it. And the servant, of course, agrees and bows, because she is a dutiful servant. She has served the imperial house for 10 generations. So before she leaves, she goes to her daughter, takes off her necklace of rank, in this case it's a Thor's hammer, and chucks it at her daughter, and says, you now serve the princess, serve her as you would serve me. Treat her with respect, treat her with honor, treat her with loyalty. And the daughter, I will do my best. And the servant goes off. And would you believe, no one in Japan will give her the liver of their unborn child. How rude. So after 10 years of looking for a liver, the woman finally sequesters herself in a cave on Adachigahara. This is a mountain in north-central Japan. And she stays there racked with guilt, racked with shame because she failed. And then one day, a large, very pregnant woman comes into the cave. Unborn child. I can get the liver. All I gotta do, hits her on the back of the head with her long, sharp, gnarled fingernails, slice, open, pulls out the baby and eats it. You went a little too far. She screams out, I did it, yata, yata. Looks down, sees the necklace she gave her daughter. At that moment, you know this story. At that moment, she is transformed into Oni Baba, the hag of Adachi Moor. For the next 200 years, if you went into her cave and if you were just a normal person in her cave, she would beat you, slow roast you over a spit, and devour you. But if you were a pregnant woman, she would hoist you up, take out the baby, eat it in front of you, and then let you watch. Notice I said for 200 years, because in the 50s, they bulldozed that mountain to build an amusement park. That is the mascot of the amusement park. Bappy-chan runs around the amusement park screaming at people, unattended children shall be slow roasted over a spit. This is the Hashihime. The Hashihime is the bridge princess. She resides in Uji. According to legend, she used to be a marriage spirit, but she thought her husband was cheating on her. So she goes to the Buddhist temple and asks the monk for guidance. The monk says, tonight, under the full moon, repeat the sutra 7 times, you'll get your answer. So what does she do? Goes to the bridge in Uji. It's a famous bridge, kneels under the bridge, recites the sutra 7 times. No sooner has the 7th left her lips that she hears her husband's voice. She peeks over the side of the bridge and sees her husband, a spirit of fidelity, arm in arm with a spirit of prostitution. She gets enraged, jumps onto the bridge, starts hurling accusations at him, slowly transforming into a monster with horns and fangs. She knocks her husband into the river, chases the prostitution spirit all the way to Kyoto, some 45 kilometers away, beats down doors, and kills everything in her path. And the next day she goes back to the bridge. Today, she is the spirit of divorce. She has a shrine in Uji. That's the shrine right there. I went to the shrine. It is not very well kept. I knocked on the door to buy a charm, and the guy told me to go away. If you want to live in the house next to that charm, you need to be divorced because you cheated on your wife. So there's the thing about the Hashihime. The Hashihime is a story of personal rage. This idea that her own fire cannot be quenched, and she will stop at absolutely nothing to get the revenge she wants. There is a super famous version of this monster that I'm pretty sure most of you know, because you already met her mother. Think about it. I want revenge for who killed my father, and I will do anything I can to get it. she's a Hashihime. And I'm just going to say this before you say, but sir, you're reading into it. No, Studio Trigger confirmed it when I went drinking with them last year. They also think I'm an idiot, and they're impressed that a gaijin cares that much about Japanese history. It would not surprise me if they wrote me into the next episode of Inferno Cop. They've done it before. No. There's an exclusive episode of Inferno Cop that takes place at Anime Next in Atlantic City, and they animated the con share into it. So that happens. This is the Honeona. This is actually the Honeona from Hellgirl. Honeona, you meet her at a marriage salon, and you say, "You're so beautiful. Oh my God, your husband, you must be so happy." And she starts saying, "Yes, I love my husband. I love him dearly. And we're going to have such a great life together. And we're going to have so many children. And we're going to have grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And the two of us together are going to be able to do all our dreams come true because I love him so dearly." And taking a page from The Corpse Bride over there. Then you see this. Because she's dead. But because her love was so great that she couldn't just let it go, it transformed her into that. So she will haunt that bridal salon forever, specifically because she just cannot accept that she has died. Now, she does in fact hang out with another one. There are these creatures called Mujina. They have no face. I'm pretty sure when I say faceless person, one name pops into your head immediately, and he demands $20 if you go wifing in the club. But those creatures are called an opera bow. They have no faces, and they're pretty nasty. There's one particular Mujina that hangs out in the marriage salon. You go there, you see her sitting down, you go to look into her face, and then when she looks up at you, that's what you see. The goal of the Mujina is literally to scare you. They don't want to hurt you. They just want to embarrass you by making you scream. There are stories of guys who go out at night and they see a person with no face, so they scream and they run into a soba shop. "Oh my God, there's someone out there with no face!" The guy behind the soba shop, like this, so he screams, runs out into the street, sees a police officer. "Faceless people!" Like this, and then he wakes up the next morning missing his pants and all his money. But that's the thing about Mujina. Their job is to scare you. They're supposed to remind you that there's sometimes things out there that you just can't deal with. But the reason I have her in here, anyone here a fan of Monsters High? Because 3 years ago, Monsters High made an opera bow. And not only did they use the actual name, they used the actual folklore. Her name is Kiyomi, and she talks about being a faceless spirit that uses her emotions to create facial features. That is exactly how the opera bow work. Someone took the time to research this, and then made her only half Japanese. So who here knows what a kitsune is? So yeah, kitsune. They're foxes. They're adorable. And the thing about foxes is, the older they get, the more tails they get. The more tails they get, the more stuff they can do. At 2 tails, they can communicate psychically. At 3 tails, they take human form. At 5 tails, they get psycho mind powers. What do you think happens when they get to 9?
They become Naruto.
Someone always says that. No, what happens when you get to 9 tails? They breathe fire. They breathe fire. They're gods that spit fire down upon you. But here's the thing. There are a lot of legends of kitsune taking human form. They see a man, they fall in love with him, they marry him. Sometimes they have children with him. One of the greatest exorcists in Japanese history, a guy named Abe no Seimei, was half kitsune. And he used that power to be able to banish ghosts. But some of you may have heard this part of the legend, that a kitsune, when she marries someone, on the wedding night, while they're sleeping, will devour their brains. I am here to tell you that is not true. Those are not kitsune. Those are kumiho, and they're from Korea. Kitsune can be just as devoted as anyone else, or they can be tricky. But that's the thing. Let me tell you another story. So, this is more of a warning. One day, the Prince of Japan was going for a walk with his princess consort, and they separate. And he goes back to the palace, and next day he wakes up sick. And then the next day he wakes up sick. And And then the next day he wakes up sick. Over and over and over and over again. No one knows what's doing this. They put guards in his room at night. They all fall asleep. Wake up the next day, he's even sicker. There's this young soldier from in the country. He is so poor, he doesn't have a name. And he goes to the captain of the guard and says, I know what's going on. If you put me in the prince's room, I will get to the bottom of this. So first captain of the guard says, okay, but if you're lying, I'm going to kill you, but we'll put you in there. So like him and 18 other guys that night are sitting in the prince's bedchamber. And the prince thanks them all for their service, closes his eyes, drifts off into slumber. And they start talking amongst themselves. What could be causing the prince's illness? No one knows the answer. And then, one by one, they all start falling asleep until the only one left awake is the young soldier. So he steels himself, he sits at rigid attention, he recites the sutra, anything to stay awake, but then he starts feeling drowsy. He has no idea why, but his eyes start closing. His breathing starts to slow. He doesn't know what's happening. So he reaches behind him, pulls out a knife, stabs himself in the leg, and begins to twist the blade. The pain bolts him to attention, and he stays like that for an hour. Right before the dawn, the door of the room opens, and in walks the princess consort. Hi, who are you? Oh, you're looking over my lord. Well, thank you. I'll be going now. And she leaves. The next day, prince is feeling a little bit better. Captain of the guard says, so what happens? We're doing it again tonight. That night, 18 other guys sitting in the room. They start falling asleep one by one. He starts to get drowsy. Out comes the knife. Other leg. He stays awake. Door opens. In comes the princess consort. But she doesn't look right. The moment she leaves, he gets up and hobbles over to the captain of the guard. Princess. They go to her door. Bang on it. Open up. I'm naked. We do not care. And they went inside. And what they found was the princess with the head of a cat. I bet you thought fox, right? You thought I was still talking about a kitsune. No, I am not talking about a kitsune. I am talking about the scariest animal humanity has ever created. I am talking to you about, not her, she's too terrifying. I bet you want to know what's on my phone. But no, not her. I'm going to show you the scariest, most horrifying thing you have ever seen in your life. A calico cat. This is my calico cat. She is Japanese patterned, and for some reason, she can walk into my bedroom when the door is closed. So this is the scariest thing in the world. A calico cat sees the princess with the head of the cat, which my cat does it in bags and boxes for some reason, and runs out the door. They chase her up into the mountains, past the palace grounds, to a shrine so old they didn't even know it was there, and they see this giant twin-tailed cat feasting on the blood of the princess. They kill the cat, they kill the princess, and the prince recovers. Now, here's the thing about cats. They are fickle. My cat is very fickle. She likes cuddling up against me, but if I try to put my arm around her, she hisses. They're fickle creatures. The reason I told this story, it was recorded in a book called Tales of Old Japan that was first published in 1872. It was written by a British noble who was bored. It's still in print. They put out an unabridged version 2 years ago. So here's the thing about Japanese legends. The Japanese absolutely adore when other people read their stories. They absolutely adore when other people write original versions where if you buy the book, I can feed the cat so the cat doesn't kill me in my sleep. But that's the thing. They love these stories. Question for you. Watashi kirei. Am I pretty? Is she pretty? Is she pretty? Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes. Those are some beautiful eyes. Look at that long black hair. Watashi kirei, she's kind of pretty. How about now? That's a kuchisake onna. Watashi kirei also, the reason I say watashi kirei and not am I pretty is, watashi kirei also means can I cut you? So you just said yes. The Kuchisake Onna. One legend says she was the unfaithful wife of a samurai. He did that to her as a punishment. I don't know if that's true. One legend says she went out for a night on the town dressed provocatively. A biker gang dragged her into an alley, did that to her. I don't know if that's true. One version says she went in for plastic surgery, said more. Doctor did that to her. I don't know if that's true. You notice what all three of them are, though? Using beauty for deviant means. A punishment for not being humble, a punishment for not being modest is this. Now, there's the thing about the Kuchisake Onna. Number one, yes, if you go, so, she'll look at you confused and you can run away. There's one version of the story where if a child can look her in the eyes and say yes, she gives him candy. Now, here's the thing. Aside from the fact that she's a slit-mouthed woman, every other version of that story I told you, I read in a book called The Great Yokai Encyclopedia. The writer gives no sources. So for all I know, he made that up himself. The thing is, it's interesting to see how the legend has evolved. So stop me if you've heard this one before. There are these two woodcutters, and they're coming down a mountain after the day's work, and a blizzard sets in. So they find a shack on the side of the mountain, they go in, they close the door, they hunker down for a night. In the middle of the night, the younger wakes up. The wind is rattling the walls, cold air is coming under the door. He turns over to his friend and sees this beautiful woman with long black hair and piercing blue eyes, leaning over his friend, kissing him and freezing him to death. She looks up at him and just says, shh. The next day, he goes back to the village, doesn't say a word about what happened. He meets a beautiful woman, they get married, they have 2 children, and some years later, there's another blizzard. Wind rattles the walls, ice blows under the door, and he is freaking out. So his wife looks at him and says, "What's wrong? Why are you so scared?" And his response is, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's just bad memories." So she prods him, "But are we not married? Didn't we promise to never keep secrets? You can tell me." So finally, he sits down and puts his head in his hands and says, "The last time there was a blizzard like this, I was coming down the mountain with one of my friends, and this blizzard hit, and we took shelter in the woodcutter's hut, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this beautiful long woman with long black hair, it kind of looked like yours, and these piercing blue eyes, it kind of looked like yours, and she was kissing him, and she froze him solid, and I'm terrified this means she's coming back for me." And his wife smiles, pats him on the leg, leans in and goes, Now, again, that is the famous version of the Yuki-onna. Do you know who wrote that? A drunk Irishman. Lafcadio Hearn, the original weeaboo, moved to Japan at the end of the 19th century, married the daughter of a samurai, changed his name to Koizumi Yakumo, and spent the rest of his life localizing those legends for American readers. Here's the thing. The Japanese prefer that one. So every single legend that he localized is the one they tell you now. And if you have a problem with it, just let it go. Let it go. Can't hold you back anymore. So I just added this slide, and I'm sorry I couldn't find one of the Kosodate Yurei, but here's the thing. Japan, again, declining birth rate. So what if a woman gives birth to a stillborn child? Well, according to some legends, they run to the river to wash the blood. And as they're washing the blood, it refuses to wash off. So they have submerged themselves in the river and drown. These creatures are known as ubume. Because they fail to bring life into the world, they need to be pitied. It's made when water rushes past stone and leaves a scream. It's said that these are the people that died and you should pity them, but they're not the only grieving mothers. Also exists a thing called a Kosodate Yurei. A young girl goes into a candy shop, asks for some candy, grabs it, and runs without paying. The owner of the candy shop chases her down the street outside of town into a graveyard, chases her all the way to the top of the hill where there is a fresh grave, and then he hears the sounds of children giggling. Those are women who die while pregnant. The baby is born in the grave, and doesn't understand what world to belong to. Again, these are meant to be pitied, because if you don't have children, if you don't know the joy of motherhood, this is bad. Japan will suffer for it. This is a Jorogumo, and I'm just going to tell you something. Who here is afraid of spiders? Then you don't want to go to Japan.
But I don't.
No, after the panel, I'll show you a spider that you don't want to see. Jorogumo meet you in the woods. They're dressed very nicely, and they hold out their arm and say, "Can you walk me home?" "Of course I'll walk you home." And they lead you further and further and further into the forest until you come across a giant cave. "Are you sure this is your home?" And then you see the legs come out, and she webs you up. Remember what I said about animals with powers? There are tons of them. The thing about Japanese gumo-san, they do not care about you. I was once hanging out on the side of Inari Mountain, taking a shower, like a misogi, a sacred shower underneath a waterfall, because it was hot that day, and a spider this big landed on my shoulder. And it crawled around a little bit, looked at me, and then just went right down to the water. Most of these things, they don't care about you. Don't be afraid of them, but everything in Japan is giant and wants to kill you.
That was Australia.
This is, oh no. Wait until this is done. If you guys stay after this is done, I'll show you some stuff. Okiku is the original well spirit. Well, the original fake well spirit. Fake. Because there was a real one. His name is Daijo Tenjin, Sugawara no Michizane, real person. I talked about him yesterday. Okiku refused to dishonor her marriage vows, even though it meant her death. She overheard her lord making plans to kill his daimyo. They said, "If you don't marry my retainer, you will die." She says, "I will not marry your retainer." So they took one of her 10 sacred plates, smashed it, she got dumped down a well. Everyone who went by the well would hear her count. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, ro, shich, hach, ku. Followed by a ghastly wailing. No one would go near the well. So word reaches the daimyo. He wants to see this. He rides to the palace of his retainer with a huge army, walks right up to the well, past the protestations of the daimyo and his samurai retainer, walks right up to the well. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, ro, shich, hach, ku. He completes the count. He says 10, Ju. He hears the wail. She rises up out of the well, and she says, "Your life is in danger. Your retainer is plotting to kill you. And since I would not keep his secret, this is my fate, forever to haunt this well." So the daimyo looks at her and says, "I'll get you out of this." He drags the retainer to the well, and the retainer is begging and pleading. "We don't go there. We don't go there. It's a monster. It'll kill us all." Ich, ni, san. "No, you have to believe me, sir. She's dangerous." Shi, go, ro. "Believe me, we'll go back inside and we'll talk about it." Hach, ku. He says 10. She rises up out of the well, disembodied, translucent skin, burning bright eyes. And she points a finger at him and recites in his own voice the words he said. The retainer falls to the floor, begging for forgiveness, and the daimyo offers it by cutting his head off. They pull Okiku out of the well, they give her a 10th plate, they bury her, and the story is done. There is a really interesting novel called The Girl from the Well. It was published, I think, in 2014, where Okiku spends the rest of her existence essentially going around killing people who harm children. Her legend is famous. Now, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but this is the Fudokuchiona. This is the most misogynistic monster you'll find in all of Japan. She marries a man for his money. He goes away on business. She doesn't feed his kids. The kids die. When he comes back, he's so enraged, he pulls out a hatchet, whacks her in the back of the head, but instead of the wound closing, second mouth. The front side says sweet things, curses like a truck driver, lies, tells the truth, while her hair becomes prehensile and devours all the food in the house. Every bit of old Japanese philosophy indicates that your wife can't be trusted, and there's a monster for that. She's so famous, she has her own Pokemon,
Oh, wow.
and her own talk show where a woman with a mechanical mouth interviews people while someone in the back screams curses into a microphone. This is my last one.
That's me. I'm already know.
This is Hanako. Hanako was a girl. During World War II, she hid in the bathroom during a bombing run and died. Today, people go into the bathroom. It's the second floor, third stall, girls' room. And they go in and they go, Hanako-san, Hanako-san, kite kudasai. You hear a giggle from the toilet, and she flies out. Now, here's the thing. Really makes you wonder what J.K. Rowling was reading at the time. So, I promised you something nasty. So give me 1 second to do this. Give me 1 second to do this. 1 second. I promised you this. So I am going. Oh, first of all, I'd like to show you something kind of cool. Ladies and gentlemen, the Suicide Forest. I got lost in it for 5 hours once.
Oh, God.
For the love of God, don't go off the trail, because you will not find your way back.
And you'll lose your blood. And you'll lose your blood.
And now.
Tanuki. Fake Tanuki. Real Tanuki. Folklore Kitsune. Actual Kitsune.
You gotta even set yourself up to be scared.
Folklore Nekomata. My Nekomata. She's 14 and a shelter rescue. Folklore Tengu. So you will see signs that say, beware Tengu, do not take food outside. I was hanging out on Hasadera Temple in south of Tokyo, and I see a guy come out of the commissary holding a yakitori stick. And then I hear a screech, and this devil bird flies down from the mountain, slams it. That is a kite. That's a Japanese kite. Flies down from the mountain, dive bombs him, takes the yakitori, and flies away. Okay, that's pretty stupid. Then he went back inside and got more yakitori. My encounter happened last year when I was at a shrine called Suitengu up in Hokkaido, and I saw a giant crow. And I'm not kidding, those things are huge.
Wow.
I see this crow. Photo. Another crow. Photo. 3 more crows. Photo. Then they all jumped me. I almost got murdered by a murder of crows. That was attempted murder. Okay, here we go. No, attempted murder is 2 crows. That's the spider that fell on me. And now, the final one I'm going to show you. Mukade. What is the worst bug you will find in your house? If you live in New York, cave crickets in the you got cave crickets, giant cockroaches, maybe you'll find an ugly little centipede. Those are the worst things that you will get in this country in your basement. The mukade are found in Japan. When it gets too wet, they like to be dry. So they go into your house. They hide in your shoe, in your futon, under your tatami mats, anywhere it's dry. What is the mukade?
College students?
That. That is a video of a juvenile mukade that big. Now, that's a juvenile. Here's the thing about these things. They do not want to bite you. So the only way they will is if you poke them. Roll over on them when you're asleep, they'll bite you. You might not even wake up. You might not even realize it because it doesn't hurt that badly, not like the ones from Southeast Asia. Not necrotic, won't kill you. Now, here's the thing. What do you do when you see one? Well, here's what you don't do. Step on it. It gives out a pheromone that says to every other mukade within 100 meters, I'm dead. They will converge on the body. They hunt in packs. Second thing, what do? Kill it with fire. If you boil it or roast it, you can in fact eat it. So, that's my story. Hopefully you like some monsters. I have some copies of my original ghost stories, my history of Japanese monsters, and my magical girl books left. I would like to sell all of them so I can feed my cat. $5 each. Tomorrow, 1 p.m., main events, American Anime, The Ultimate Oxymoron. It's not on the printed schedule. My last panel, and you guys were awesome. Thanks for coming out. If you like what you saw, you can always check out my stuff on Twitter at Tengu Talks, TenguTalks, on Facebook.com/study of anime. My name is Charles. I also go by Lex, or anime anthropologist if you've been around since like 10 years ago. And most of my stuff involves fan studies, monsters, gods, religion, and all that wonderful stuff. That panel is just me cutting loose for an hour.